I made this short film over 10 years ago, and at the time it was the best I could do. But now with AI tools, I can finally push it closer to what I originally had imagined. So today, I'm gonna George Lucas my own short film. Higgsfield reached out about doing this video, and honestly it was perfect timing because I've had this idea in the queue for quite a while. And after my latest video where I talked about how AI will realistically change the film industry, a lot of you were pretty adamant about all the things that AI can do. So I'm gonna put on my visual effects hat and put all of those claims to the test. I'm gonna use Higgsfield's latest tools to try this and see what actually holds up. I made this short film back in 2012, and it was sort of like this visual idea that I had, almost like an experimental sci-fi. And this short film actually got into the Los Angeles Film Festival back in 2012, which is pretty crazy considering like how experimental it was. But even then, I knew there were things in it that I wished I could have done better. For instance, the creature in the short film, back then I had never created like a full CG creature, and that's what I wanted to do, but I didn't have the skill set to do something like that. So I built a puppet, and I built this puppet, but it was very restrictive in its movement, and it didn't allow me to really show the creature to the full extent that I wanted to. So I had to kind of like cheat shots. So now if I were to do this creature, I would probably just do it fully CG and animate it. But now with AI tools, my curiosity is like, how well do they hold up? Could I actually create this creature using AI? The other thing was the android in the film. So I originally came up with a design for the android, but when I designed it, I was sort of thinking in mind loosely, like I'm gonna build this practically, so I need to design it around things that I can actually build out of materials that are available to me. For instance, the helmet was based off of like a welding helmet. But now if I were to go do it fully CG, or if I were to fabricate it from scratch, I could use any materials, I could design it any way. What would I have done differently? And so I'm gonna also revisit that character and see how I could recreate shots using AI. The original film took 2 years to make, so I'm definitely not remaking the whole thing. Instead, I'm gonna focus on areas where I feel that AI will help make the biggest difference. And I think the part of this film that I'm gonna focus on, if I were to redo shots of the creature and redo shots of 3113, the android, is probably this section here where the two of them are like coming together for the first time and interacting with each other. I think that's probably the best part, where I could generate shots of both of them and see how it works together. All right, let's start off with the creature. And I wanna start off with redesigning the creature. So first, like these were some of my initial sketches for the creature, like this short, probably like 4-foot bipedal creature, I don't know, mixed between like a rabbit and a lemur, long ears and long fingers and large eyes, and that was pretty much it. All right, let's start here with Nano Banana and see if we can get something cool with the creature. Let's say bipedal creature, 4 feet tall. How do you describe this to an AI? All right, I'm just gonna see what this one does. The other thing I could try is I could try plugging in the sketches that I had and maybe see if I could get something based off of that sketch. But let's see what this does just with the AI generator. Oh, that's pretty interesting. Kind of looks like a gremlin or something. Okay, so I kept prompting it and I wasn't getting any good results, and I could tell that it was a little bit too far away from what I was really imagining. So then I plugged this in and tried to generate some results from that, and now it's getting a little bit closer. Like, you know, this one is closer to what the original sketch looks like, but I don't really want it to look exactly like the sketch. Okay, so here I'm in paint, and let's see if I could just highlight the eyes. Now this is the part where people said you actually can just pick and choose like certain parts of the thing that you want to regenerate, but this isn't video, this is a still. So, but let's see if I can get the eyes to change. This one's also interesting. I think if I could change the eyes from glowy white to a more realistic hazel iris and black pupils. Okay, it did regenerate. I said more normal looking eyes, but it gave me like Sonic the Hedgehog eyes. So there is no white in the eyes. All right, it takes a little bit to generate, and this one still is like, there's still white in the eyes. Like, how do you not understand don't have whites in the eyes? Like, make it fully iris. Maybe I just need to tell it that. Make it fully iris. All right, this is the update on making the eyes fully iris. There's still whites in the eyes. All right, I'm gonna see if I can start with this guy right here, and I'm gonna use the draw to edit feature where it lets you like draw on the image and put notes. This is normally how I would talk to a concept artist or an illustrator. So I'm trying to see if it will blend the head into the shoulders a little bit more naturally without like a crease or like a defined neck. It failed to do that, so I'm retrying it again. Okay, so here's what happens when I try to give it both the illustration that I did and one of the renders that I liked and tell it to use the body proportions from the illustration. Let's see if I switch to Sea Dream. Okay, that got even weirder. I don't think that's the way to go. Okay, I think I'm gonna start over. I think the best way to do this is to just generate an image and then just use the in paint tool to start trying to shape it as best as I can. It's taking a while to generate every time I make a change to this. And I gotta say, like, it's kind of hard to go down this path where you feel like you're just throwing paint at the wall. The thing that bothers me is that there's no tangible asset here. Like, how am I gonna recreate this clock? Because it's in multiple shots. It's at a different angle in this shot, in a different location. Like, is it gonna keep that piece consistent throughout? If you do it in 3D, it will. Thing that's frustrating is, like, for instance, the hands are always like putting claws on it and I'm telling them like don't have any claws or nails, and then like it makes the tips of the fingers like big bulbous tips like a frog or something, and I say like don't make bulbous fingers, like make them thinner, and then it puts nails on them. And then I say don't make them bulbous, make them less bulbous without nails or claws. And then it just makes them like kind of pointy with bulbous tips. It's very hard. It feels like you're just knocking it around, and every time I'm doing an iteration, it's kind of degrading the image. Okay, so I gave the prompt just now to make this creature a little taller and more slim, less bulky. And it gave me the same exact proportions, but just made the creature yellow. Is it because the highlight tool is yellow? I wanted to create this as though like there is no short film that exists, and I'm trying to create it from scratch the way that you would if you were going to do this for the first time. Because I feel like it's a little bit of a cheat to take things from the short film and then regenerate it. But since I am like trying to improve shots, basically make this like the special edition version, I do actually need to match these shots to the short film. So I went through the short film and pulled all of the stills of the creature that I had, and I'm gonna try to ingest that and see if Nano Banana can use that to create the creature in AI. All right, let's see what happens. I also just haven't really experimented with any of these. I'm curious what happens if I just click animate on one of these images. And this is using Kling. All right, it's ready. That's pretty cool. It's pretty interesting to see. Here's another thing. It gave the character a tail. That's another thing. Like when you design a creature, you usually design it 360. Like I know there's a feature in Nano Banana to like change the perspective, but this is pretty cool just seeing like the ears like moving, and like one of the things that's super difficult when you bring a character from a concept into animation, especially a creature that doesn't exist, is you have to figure out anatomy. So like how does the creature move? And so this is pretty interesting seeing like the way that this character walks, but it's helping me at least understand like when I do get the character that I like, I do need to do like 4 perspectives of it. Okay, so in other news, I plugged in 14 images from the short film, and this is what Nano Banana came up with. It looks like a mix between like a lemur and like the dog from Ghostbusters. Okay, so that technique isn't gonna work, but this is something that I want to point out. So I've been going through all of these iterations you can see down here, but I've been just selecting certain areas of the image, but you can see like the more that I keep generating this image, the more that the image starts degrading like a super compressed JPEG. Like if I keep going, it's just gonna look like a blob by the end. Like we're losing a lot of quality detail on the ears, like the fur that was on the ears and stuff. That's now just getting lost. I just remembered that there is a couple of shots in the movie that is meant to be a section where the creature is trying to communicate with the android, and he sends something through the portal and it ends up inside of this fruit. Now at the time I had an idea of what I wanted this fruit to look like. It's supposed to be like something alien that would exist on another planet. And I came up with like a quick sketch of what I thought it would look like. And I can't remember if I actually tried to make a physical version of this prop, but what's in the film right now is what I ended up using, which was just a pineapple. And it's like very clearly, obviously a pineapple. Like I cut the top of it off, but it's a pineapple. So I feel like this would actually be a good use case where if I were to go back and change something about the film, it would probably be this, because there's only like 3 shots of it in the movie. All I would need to do is change it from a pineapple to some kind of like exotic fruit. So my first attempt at trying to recreate this was to plug in the original sketch that I had, and the first iterations it was giving me looked a lot like an illustration or something, even though I told it to try to make like a photorealistic version of it. So I went back in and reprompted some things. I kind of messed with like some of the angles and lighting, and I just kept regenerating it until I got something that looked kind of interesting. So eventually I got something that was looking pretty good, but then I needed to create a shot like the composition that you see in the actual short, like the actual shot that I need. And that took some trial and error. It was kind of difficult. So I started generating some ideas of that, and I got something that was looking pretty decent that I thought would probably work. So I then took that into Kling and tried to give it a prompt of what the shot is supposed to be to generate something. And this was the first attempt that it gave me. Yeah. I'll be honest, when I saw this, I was like, how in the world am I going to give the prompt enough direction to know exactly the type of shot that I want? So the first attempt wasn't very successful, and then I tried it again, tried to generate another one, and this is what the second attempt gave me. This one was actually looking pretty promising. I really liked the way that the fruit were hanging and like just barely swaying in the breeze, which was really nice. And then the way that it broke off and the camera like kind of pans down. I only need the first part of that camera move, so you're not ever going to see the ground. So this shot actually would probably work. The only thing that I don't like about it is that all three of the fruits are exactly the same, identical replicas of each other, and there's no variation to it. And I tried going back to the image and like reprompting it to try to change, and I did some in paint, and I went into Photoshop and used generative fill to see if I could change up some stuff there. And I was able actually to change up some stuff, and it was looking pretty decent, something that I liked. So then I took that back into Kling and was trying to regenerate the animation from that. It's got smoke. I'm gonna try and use this shots feature to see if I can generate anything successful there. I tried to see if I could make something happen where I could do like a rack focus from the background to the foreground, see what happened. Okay, this actually did it. Just doing this one last Cinema Studio test, and then I'm gonna move on. I don't know, off of first glance, it's sort of, for some reason, the back fruit looks kind of flat. Front fruit looks pretty good, but I think I have a shot of this. Like, I have another one that works pretty good. I think this is a good alternative, and I'm gonna leave it here. I'm going back to the creature now. Okay, so I really need to jump back into the creature and finalize the design of it. But one of the things that I wanted to do first was just take one of the designs that I kind of like and just run an animation test on it just to see what it looks like. And I'm glad that did that because it told me a few things. Here's the design right here that I did an animation test of. Just ran a prompt real quick to see what it looks like when it's walking. Because one of the things that I was wondering about with this design is like, how is it gonna walk if its feet are that long? And I think it did like what it could with it. I think it did a good job, but it's like, you know, the bones are like bending right in the middle. Figuring out something like this earlier on in the design is better than like finalizing it, getting to the end, and then trying to animate it and get it to move and realize that like a design like this is gonna be very hard to actually function. All right, guys, so I've landed on a design that I'm pretty happy with, that I think is gonna work for the use case that we're trying to do right now. So I'm just gonna keep this creature as it is and move ahead because I still need to create like the different perspectives of it in order to plug it into Kling. Okay, so this was an attempt for me to change the angle of the creature to see what it looks like from the side. This side angle is kind of like Crash Bandicoot or something. Like, I'm trying to make it so the face is flat. This one looks pretty good, but yeah, the face is like, I don't know, let's see if I can get this to work. See, I'm probably gonna have to just end up going with something like this. Ugh. Yeah, that did nothing. See what I mean? It's like, sometimes you select what you want, you make a change to it, and it just does absolutely nothing. Oh, fudge, it gave it a rabbit tail. See, this is why I need to generate the full, like, 360. Let's see if this is enough information for Kling to be able to generate some videos. All right, so I went in and painted out the environment that the creature is gonna be in, and then I also took a bunch of stills of the portal that's in the short, and it actually gave me something really good that works pretty well. Like, this is actually kind of what it's supposed to look like. Okay, so now in Cinema Studio 2.5, we've got the creature environment, the portal, and the creature loaded in here. And now it's time to see if we can get the mixture of these things working for one of the shots. So the first shot that I want to recreate, it's a handheld looking shot as it's kind of static as the bird flies out from the portal. I'm gonna see if I can recreate that shot first. All right, I've got all this dialed into Cinema Studio 2.5. I've got the creature, the environment, and the portal uploaded, and I've given it direction. I told it that it's going to be a dolly from left to right, and here we go. What in the world? Okay, I'm very confused by this. Oh, okay. Problem was that we had the fruit plugged in to the start frame. So let's try this again. All right, I was sort of impatient because it was telling me that if I'm using a character in the shot that I have to have a start frame. So I'm going back over to Nano Banana to create a start frame for this, but I just wanted to plug in the prompt that I had and see what it would create. And here's the shot that it made. It's pretty interesting, like this is the exact location that's in my short film. Okay, I tried to create some images of the planet. None of these are really looking, I mean, they look pretty much like the still, and I don't think that these are gonna be very useful. So I'm gonna use this as like the start frame, and hopefully it puts the correct character there and the portal. Let's see what the shot looks like. What's really weird is like, so it basically turned the shadow of the puppet's ears into like legs. This is where I don't get people that say like, oh, you can like select images, parts of the image and change it. Like if I were to try to tell this, like there's something weird going on with the bird, fix that. I don't think it's gonna be able to do that. Guys, I feel like this is gonna take forever. This is the frames that it's mocking. This looks like just like a terrible Photoshop job. Like, how in the world is this supposed to work? Maybe AI is more successful with things that aren't like high concept, like with things that already exist. I guess like people, real animals. This wants to turn this animal into like a rabbit and it's looking like a cartoon or something. This is my attempt to do it inside of Cinema Studio 2.0, trying to create an image. This just looks so terrible. All right, I gotta be honest, guys. I'm hitting a bit of a breaking point right here where it's starting to feel sort of impossible to create this creature shot. I'm realizing that these shots in particular is probably one of the hardest things you could try to do with AI, because I'm creating a creature that doesn't exist in a location and an environment that doesn't exist. And there's not really a great way to like create all these different assets and put them together the way that you could in 3D. I feel like I'm really just grasping for straws trying to get this shot to work, and I don't know if it's going to. I really don't know if this is gonna work. And I'm running out of time. Okay, so I told Nano Banana to put the creature in the desert environment, and it gave me an image like this, which looked pretty interesting. It was a little bit more closer. I mean, this is not the same shot of what I had, but at this point I'm trying to just see if I can get any workable shot that would even work for the short film during this section. So it just generated this. Let's see what this looks like. This is crazy. Fudge. Okay. All right, guys, I know this is cheating, but it's got to be done. I'm going to Photoshop the creature in to the scene. AI is not pulling its weight around here, so I'm gonna add the portal back in here. All right, so now I basically had to paint up this frame the way that I mean, this would have been the easiest thing to do from the very beginning. I mean, AI helped me get the look of the creature, be able to put it into the shot. This will actually give me more options. I could probably just push the camera in, make it more cinematic, things like that I couldn't have done in the short, but it'll keep the scene pretty similar to the way that it was. All right, things are actually starting to get pretty interesting. I think I might be making some progress on the creature shots. This was definitely harder than I expected, especially getting the creature into an actual shot, but I do think that I have a couple moments that are actually working. They're not exactly what I had imagined, but I definitely think that they're better than what I had before. I think what I have right now with the creature is probably about as far as I can take it without spending way too much time on it. All right, I want to get started on the Android. I think I'm in a pretty good place with the creature. Obviously, there's things that I wish that I could tweak or spend more time on, and I think if I were to generate it a few more times, I could really dial those things in, but I have something that will work for now, so now I think I want to focus mostly on the Android. I'm hoping that this will go by a little bit quicker because the Android character should be a little bit easier for the AI to come up with images on it because it's based on a human figure, and I think there's probably more examples of what this character could look like. I still don't think I'd be able to use Cinema Studio for this because it does have like a mask and stuff, so it's a little bit more specialized, but I think I'm just gonna cut through all the noise this time and just use the concept drawing that I made for the character all those years back and see if I can get a much closer design a lot quicker. All right, so I started off with the illustration that I did and kind of refined it until I got it to somewhere where it was looking like it was actually a character that was like real, that was shot in the forest. And then I had to like take these images that I liked and then replug them into the generator and then reprompt them so that it would get further and further away from the illustration, because it kept doing like illustration style versions of the character, even though I was telling it to make it look photoreal. But eventually I kept generating it, and I got to a place where I really like it. And obviously there's things that I want to tweak. And then I tried taking it into InPaint and tweaking some things, but that's really where I'm going to hit a snag, and you can spend way too much time doing that and dialing it in. So while there are things that I wish that I could change about this, it's small things. I think this overall looks like the character in the film, and I think that this will work for these purposes. So to just keep pressing forward and to start making some shots, I'm gonna take this and try and see if I can create different angles of them, and then see if I can start generating the compositions of the shots and then generating shots themselves. In Nano Banana, I can create the character like this, and then I can go into angles and change the rotation to 180 degrees and see if it'll get me an accurate back shot. It tends to zoom in also, which I don't want, but I mean, this is cool because it gave me a new angle, and this one is like a 180 degree from behind it. So the cool thing is that I could take this as a reference and see if I can just tell it to zoom out a little bit and make some changes to the jetpack. Okay, cool. So I got a version of the android from behind. It was too close. I told it to back up. I didn't like the jet. I told it to make it a little bit more boxy and smaller in design. And then I said to make sure that it put jet boosters on the back of the calves near the ankles. And I didn't like the way that these looked, so I went into InPaint and changed it. These aren't exactly what I wanted them to look like, but it's definitely better than what was there before in the first place. So now that I have a front and a back of the character, I'm gonna see if I can use these and move on. All right, it's pretty tricky to generate the composition for the shot that I need, and also like everything that it's generating just doesn't look like a movie really. Like there's kind of this weird like concept art vibe to it. This one is pretty cool. I'll keep experimenting with this, although I'm very tempted, like I said, to just take this and Photoshop it. Okay, so I was finally able to get a composition that I think will work bringing this into Kling, but I basically had to combine two different images and do some tweaking in Photoshop. So I used this one that I thought looked really good for the android and the background, and then this one that looked good for the portal. So I took the two of those, combined them, and created a comp that looked like this, which I think would work pretty good for the shot. All right, so I was able to pretty successfully get it to look a little bit more degraded like an HDV cam. It's just very slight, a little bit of green and purple chromatic aberration. I don't want to push it too far because some of the images that I was generating were going a little bit crazy. So I got it dialed in to where it looks like a good happy medium, and I think it works pretty well. And this was the first result I got back after plugging it into Kling. I gotta say, it looks pretty good. It's pretty promising. The weird thing is that I feel like when I'm generating the images, it looks really bad, like it doesn't look real, but the moment that you plug it into a video generator, all of a sudden it starts to look like an actual shot. It's a very weird thing. There's like one really weird quirk that I really dig about Kling, and it's whenever it does like a dolly move, it has this like slight bump to it. It makes it feel so much more real. So anyways, I'm gonna reprompt this, mess with it a little bit, and see what I can get. All right, I think I got something that works for the Android. It's not perfect, but I think this is going to work. I've plugged some of these shots into the edit and messed around with it. I think I'm ready to show you guys the final results. Okay, so what I've got is this 16-second part of the film where the creature and the android are about to meet for the first time. I'm gonna play for you guys first the before, and then I'll show you guys the after. So this is what it looked like before. So that's what I did in 2012 using puppetry and self-fabricating an Android suit. So now that it's 2026 and AI tools are available, let's see what it would look like if I recreated those shots using AI. There you have it. For all that it's worth, recreating this part of my short film using AI. There's a lot of things that I had to just give up on. Like for instance, there's supposed to be a Raven that flies into the portal on the Android side. I had so many problems trying to get the Raven to fly out of the portal on the creature side that I knew that it would just take me forever to try to get all of those pieces orchestrated correctly for the Android shot, so I decided to just not even bother with the Raven at all. The other thing is that the portal stones are supposed to be like slowly turning in opposite directions. I could never get that to work. Also, the size of the portal is inconsistent in the Android shots. Like no matter what I did in the prompt, I could never get it to be the proper size. Even if I told it that it's like 3 feet in diameter, the Android's 6 feet, that's 3 feet. I had to leave that. And then on the last shot, when the Android's reaching through the portal, in a last ditch effort to try and get an extra shot of a close-up, I was able to get one last shot of the Android reaching through the portal, but he was reaching with the wrong hand. And then the creature really bothered me, like the way that he's walking. There's some times where his hands are out front. I mean, just getting a shot where he wasn't walking on all fours was like pulling teeth. So all that said, there's a lot about it that's imperfect, and if I spent enough time tweaking it, it's possible that I could fix those things. And there is an element of like luck of the draw. It is like a slot machine. You put a quarter in and pull the lever and see what you get. And half the time you're just prompting it and generating it, hoping that maybe if you direct the camera to do something special, you can get an additional shot out of it. But all in all, like the shots look pretty cool. But anyways, I learned quite a bit through the process of this, and I want to break down everything and look at some of the stats. Okay, so for everything that I made here, including all of the image generation and all of the video generation, design work, all that kind of stuff, it took me a total of about 3 days worth of production time, which is super quick. I mean, it took me 2 years to create the entire short film. I'd sometimes spend a week, maybe a week and a half on one visual effects shot. So for 3 days of production time, you gotta take it for what it's worth. And then how many credits did it take to create all of this? In total, I used 1,326 credits, which evens out to be about $100 worth of credits. If you can catch a discount, then it could be even cheaper. But in total, it's 3 days worth of work and $100 spent on the budget, which is not bad. And all in all, I gotta say, it created some really cool images. It really helped me flesh out designs of the creature and the android. It created some pretty cool shots. Some of the shots worked for the film, but not as is. Like it would still require some tweaking to get them to work. And right now, I'd be worried that the shots look too AI to put them into the film and leave them that way. But it seems possible to get it there if enough time was put into it. And I mean, let's be honest, both versions of this has jankiness to it. Do I think that it actually improved it? In some regards I do, in some regards I don't. Both of them have their pros and cons, and I really did like the design that it came up with for the Android, but I feel like it would just require a lot more control to get it to the level that it should be at. But as it is right now, I'd say it's slightly improved. And granted, I didn't have a lot of time to dive into every single tool and all the different features that it has, so I'm sure that there's some cool stuff and a lot of stuff that I missed. Would I use this in a real film? I think it would be possible to use it for one-off shots, close-ups, inserts, but it's not really like a quick solution. It's not as if you just plug in an image, type in a prompt, and then you get a great looking shot. Like it really takes time to get it to do what you want it to do. It's not as easy as it seems, as some people think. It's just like prompting something and that's it. Like you really do need to have like a creative eye. Like you still need creative people to be prompting and creating the stuff, even using AI. And that's why I still feel like the best use case of AI is when it's incorporated into software. The thing that it like just absolutely can't do right now is like if you do have an Android, say you have a character like Boba Fett, right? And you have all this specific armor, it's like certain shapes and it's in certain places. To get the AI to like build a character or to be able to reference a character where it knows for every single shot that it's going to create of that character, it knows exactly like what tools are in the pocket on his shin. So like if you're getting a close-up of the foot, it knows exactly what that looks like from every single angle. You're never gonna get that unless you create a 3D asset or it's a live action character. It's just right now, it's almost impossible for AI to understand every single little square inch of a character. I don't think this replaces traditional filmmaking, and I don't think it ever will. And to me, this feels like an off branch of that. Like it feels like when computer graphics came out. It's like a new door opened, a big new door opened with a huge playground and a new way to create images. But it's a branch on the tree. And again, a huge thanks to Higgsfield for sponsoring this video and letting me experiment with this stuff. It was a lot of fun. It was very insightful. It was a very interesting process and a very quick learning curve, just diving headfirst into all this. And yeah, if you guys found this interesting, don't forget to like the video and subscribe. I'm sure that I'll probably dive into some more AI tools. These things are changing super rapidly. By the time I release this video, I think Cinema Studio 3 is gonna come out, so there's always new things to test. But anyways, thanks for sticking around, and until next time, later. Pretty awesome though, right? What do you think?
Well, could use more Gungans.